Welcome to Coast Creatives, a podcast for and about working professional artists within the entertainment industry. I'm Joe Funk, and along with my co-host Torrin Cavens Flores, we interview actors, directors, photographers, writers, and many, many more. Today, we're chatting with Ben Kacsandi and Dave Moriarty. Together, they form the musical comedy duo Ben and Dave's Mixtape. They discuss their mutual passions for both comedy and music and how they blend both art forms together. We also talk about the songwriting process and the importance of having a reliable, honest partner in artistic collaborations. Lastly, Ben and Dave get real about some of the nitty-gritty of the world of music and break down how to get your music up on platforms like Spotify and what they would have done differently the next time around. But before we begin, I really love bringing you this podcast every week. So if you have the time, please be sure to rate this podcast on the platform of your choice and spread the word so we can continue bringing you new guests every single week. And now, without any further ado, here's Ben and Dave's Mixtape. Well, welcome to the show, Ben and Dave, of Ben and Dave's Mixtape. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Heck yeah. Thanks, guys.
This is the first dual guest episode.
Awesome.
I do believe.
Yeah, no, it definitely is.
You guys have only gone solo?
Yeah. Only solo. We've never had two people on at once. So thank you for being our first here today.
You're welcome.
Awesome.
We did it, Dave.
Virtual high five. So welcome in. Let's start by tell us a little bit about yourselves and your work.
Dave and I go back to LA. He originally was a musician guy. I was a comedy guy, and we worked together. And we birthed this little thing called Ben and Dave's Mixtape. So we started writing some comedy music together and performed in LA for a while. And we both came to the East Coast for different reasons. And we, after a little hiatus through COVID and such, we picked things back up. And now we're writing again, performing again, recorded an album, and we'll dive into all those things for you.
Oh, I love it. And Dave, so you are as Ben has dubbed you, the music guy.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about your background in music.
Man, started playing in bands. I was like 14, 15, and started writing songs by 16. And I've just been doing that in and out of bands, writing music for other people, and just went to LA and met this guy. And the thing was, I always loved comedy. I always loved comedy. I loved listening to it. I always kind of wanted to do it. Mm-hmm. And when we started doing this, it was like, oh, this is my path to do it. And it's been awesome.
Do you have a background in performance, in acting as well?
Yes. I did some acting in college and in high school and stuff like that. But when I went to college, I went to a small music school here on Long Island called Five Towns College. It's a jazz commercial music school. And I went for performance, and I had a minor in theater, actually.
Oh, okay.
But I just, it's always been music.
Oh, I love it. And how many instruments can you play?
Probably about 5.
Okay. What?
I've 3 pretty good, and 2 of them all right.
What are those 3? What are the top 3?
Guitar, drums, voice, a little bit of bass, a little bit of piano, a little bit of baritone horn. I could probably play trombone as well.
Okay.
And side note, the reason he listed voice as an instrument is because Dave is an a cappella guy.
Oh.
Yeah, and in college I used to compete in a barbershop quartet, actually.
Come on.
Oh, really? I did
awesome.
that back in high school. So
you did?
It's been a while. Yeah, it's fun.
Here's the thing I want to gloss over. We have 4 people here.
Yeah.
And I think this could be the beginnings of a new barbershop quartet.
Ooh.
It could be.
It sounds like 2 of you have experience. I'm down for anything.
It sounds like at least 2 of us are bassists.
And I feel like, I don't know if I've ever heard Torrin sing.
You have not.
You're the wild card.
Look out.
Listen to that. We got a bass.
Oh,
Today's the day. And Ben, what is your musical background?
Ooh, my musical background. I did little instruments growing up. So it was like the cello in the 5th grade, because you had to do string instruments before you could do like band instruments like you would use in high school. And then I played trumpet for a couple years. And that was kind of it. I always enjoyed singing, but was very self-conscious about it because I was like real life Glee. I was the quarterback on the football team and also one of the leads in the play, but it was like very self-conscious about doing both of those things.
Yeah.
That was real groundbreaking stuff. Ironically in Ohio, and I think Glee's based in Ohio, right?
I think so.
I think it is. Look at
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I have a tragic ending coming. I know nothing good happens to everyone from Glee, right? It's like scary stuff.
Most of them. It is one of those cursed shows.
There's like a documentary about it.
And what is your comedy background?
Sure. That kind of meshes with the music bit. Was that comedy kind of came into my life from a very early age of just sketches and improv and all that when I moved out to LA. And I always loved music and wanted to find a way to incorporate that into the comedy, and I just didn't really know how to do it. And a lot of our sketch comedy shows at like Second City and Groundlings, there's a musical component and there was always a music director. And I remember wanting to learn to play the guitar, but I never had like the incentive to do it. So I wrote a song that I had to perform guitar on stage for a 16-week run of a show at Second City, and I didn't know how to play guitar. So I had to force myself to learn to play that song. And ever since then, that was kind of my like into comedy music. Yeah.
And can you still play that song?
Yeah. I don't know if I can sing it on this show, but it was about, it was called Football Camp, and it was kind of,
I remember that.
it was experiencing, I can't get into it right now. It was actually a really great song and a really funny cast that sang it together. We like acted the whole thing out. It was awesome.
We'll
So,
put like I'll transcribe it in the description of the podcast.
Yes,
Be
please.
Like, check out Football Camp. It's about this.
because again, it's what we were talking about a little bit earlier. It's not a dirty song. It just has implications in it that if you go to that, we go from A to B, but if you want to go to C, then you'll see and hear some things. A little cryptic.
I'm intrigued now. So this is great. You guys both have backgrounds in comedy and music, and you've combined for this amazing volume 1 that you have. Talk a little bit, before we get into that, talk a little bit about your inspirations. Who are your inspirations musically and comedically? And if both, that'd be fantastic too, if you can double dip.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on, Beatles and pop stuff like that. Tenacious D and Stephen Lynch, people like that. And I always loved, watching Saturday Night Live, and started to see people do stuff like that with comedy, even early Adam Sandler stuff. But I love everything. I love heavy rock. I like jazz. I like pop. I like country. I like rap. But yeah, I think for me with the comedy would be like SNL and Weird Al really started to be like, oh wow, you can do that? That's genius. And just always wanted to do something sort of like that, I guess, for me.
Yeah. And I think the wide range of things that you both like in terms of comedy and music, I think that plays so well into what you guys do, because it's not all like one genre of music that you do. It's all over the place in the best way possible, lots of variety throughout your songs, and just so funny.
Thank you.
Funny.
That's that. And just to finish off too,
Mm-hmm.
that's really what we went for. When we said this, we said we don't want to just do one thing. We really liked the idea that one song could be this kind of maybe a folky song, or the next song could be like kind of a rock song. That just was like, oh yes, because then there's so many possibilities.
Yeah, and I'm actually glad that you brought that up, Tor, and I guess we didn't really lay the stage for. So kind of what Ben and Dave's Mixtape is, the reason that we're Ben and Dave's Mixtape is that we play comedy songs in different musical genres. And the thing about our stage show, which we'll get into, is that we do a costume change on stage for each and every song. So it's a very unique kind of experience. But to stem back to the music, the thing that we liked about it is that we both appreciate so many different styles of music. And so we always thought like everyone's dream is to like be a rock star and be on stage and be doing all this stuff. And then as you get older and you appreciate country music, you appreciate rap, you appreciate rock, you appreciate classical, you appreciate all of these acoustic and piano and all these things. And we just realized we like all of those things. What if there's a way that we can perform all of those things on stage? And you're a country star for a song, and then you're a rock star for a song, and then you're in a boy band for a song, and then you're a rapper for a song. It's so weird and fun, and that all of our similar comedy heroes and music heroes, Dave has a bunch that I've never heard of. I have a bunch that I enjoy that he's kind of like, okay, that's, you do you. Sure. Yeah, that works. But then we find a way to marry those worlds where I present a song, and he's like, and he has the slow head nod and kind of like a nondescript look. And I'm like, maybe we'll come back to that for the third album because clearly you're not vibing with that right now. But yeah, I'll pause there.
When you have so many different genres and inspirations to pick from, how does that factor into the creative process, the writing process? What comes first for you? Is it, oh, I love this genre and I want to make a song off of this? Or do you have the idea for lyrics first and you try to figure out where stylistically that's going to fit in musically?
I'll jump in quick there because the origins of Ben and Dave was, again, Dave was a musician, I was a comedian, and we would just kind of support each other in LA. I would come to his music shows, he would come to my comedy stuff, and then we just decided to, I think I approached Dave, and I had written, in the same way that for the comedy show I had written lyrics for a song. The thing for me is that I can sit down and write comedy lyrics or comedy bits, whatever, all day, every day. I had no idea how to translate that into music that sounded something other than 3 chords on a guitar standing in place on stage, which was the first thing I did. He was so musically talented, and we got along very well and would make each other laugh, that I just presented him. I was like, I have some lyrics. Can you help me put these to a song, and maybe we'll get up and play them? And then years later, we have a full album. We do all sorts of different genres of music. So it started presenting lyrics, and then we build the songs after that. Now our writing process is adapted a little bit in that we're like, okay, the first album was this style of music. We should probably try some other styles. But the thing that's so interesting is that I'll write lyrics, and I have no idea what that genre is going to be. And I'll kind of start to sing it, and then Dave's like, okay, that sounds like a this, and I'll play it on the guitar, and then he's like, oh, that's kind of like a Nirvana song. And then all of a sudden we have the lyrics about bath bombs that has like a Nirvana beat to it, and that's kind of where we go from there.
That's ironic. Bath bombs in a grunge style.
That's exactly Dave's reasoning for it. Yeah. He goes, because you're grungy, so you take a bath. Yeah.
And I want to come back real quick. You were talking about you playing guitar, but give yourself more credit. You also play the triangle.
Oh, this is true.
Oh yeah, he does.
There is video evidence of this.
I am the king of the extraneous instrument on stage. We were just talking about that earlier today, actually, that at one point we had a country song, and I came out and I blew into a harmonica and then never touched it again for the rest of the song. It was more just a prop to have in my hand as opposed to an actual like part of the song. Oh yeah.
And what were the genres that you really hit upon for Volume 1?
Definitely like a kind of a country vibe. We wanted like a kind of a hippie, like fun, cute vibe. Mm-hmm. We wanted a rock, like punk vibe. And then, the cool thing about working with someone as talented as Ben is, especially as a creative, is that we start doing things and all of a sudden there's an idea. And I'm very grateful for that because it happens all the time. So like some of those songs, like one of the songs on the album is called In So Deep. And that just came along. I was, joking around. I played this thing on the piano, and Ben just had this story, and it was done. And we didn't even think about, let's write a piano song. It just kind of happened. So, yeah.
And that's the thing I think that I appreciate so much about him. And again, we talk about this often. He plays lots of shows solo. He's been in bands. I've had ensembles on stage, and I've played some solo stuff. There is nothing like having someone next to you. on stage and celebrate the wins, and you suffer through the losses together. But like the ensemble has always been a huge thing. And I just played a show this past Friday, and Dave did one as well. And I was like, I had so much fun. And it's just still so much more fun when there's another person there with you. And the same goes with the writing. Like I can sit there and write and laugh at my own stuff. And for whatever reason, when he and I are working on something together, it just comes together immediately, like just feeding ideas. And then he plays the music that I'm thinking, oh, that's perfect for a chorus. And then like the way that we build it is just so much faster. And those creative juices kind of get flowing, and to be able to feed off another person instead of like that there's so little writer's block in that world because we just kind of bounce around to different things. And he has an idea, then I have an idea, instead of me just sitting there stuck because I can't rhyme something with orange.
Yeah.
Right.
Is it tricky for you guys to have these brainstorming and writing sessions when you don't live in the same location? Ben, you're here in Georgia, and Dave, you live in New York. Is it tricky doing this over Zoom?
Well, we wrote so many songs in LA at our, apartments. And then when we both, it took a little while to get it, I guess, streamlined, but now it's great. We have 2 writing sessions a week. We know when we're going to get together, and we hang out, we talk, and then a couple ideas come out, and then we work on them. And it's been pretty great, actually. And technology, the fact that we can do this,
No doubt,
almost in real time it's awesome because we can work still and not be living in the same place.
Yeah, and that was a weird thing that we even realized when we started doing the Zoom like writing sessions. We're like, why have we not been doing this for the last however long? Like we would get on the phone and talk when one of us is in the car, and it's just a normal human conversation. But there was a barrier between the creativity. Seeing the person just changes the game completely.
It really
in
does.
every way. Yeah.
I think you guys should count yourselves very lucky because there are, of course, duos and ensembles, and they create amazing work. But that so much of it takes so much time. So the expediency that you guys experience is, I think, probably few and far between,
Sure.
Yeah, I'm very grateful. And really, we keep saying, but he's very quick sometimes with his words. He can just come up with stuff. And on the other side of it, I can come up with riffs and stuff pretty quick, and if he says these words like we said before, so I can be like, oh, that sounds like a G, let's do this. So yes, you're right, I'm very grateful. We're very lucky that way.
There's a creative harmony kind of in what we both bring, because I have strengths in one area, you have strengths in another area, and we're both okay in the other area but getting better. So like his quickness and wittiness and jokes coming to has gotten so much better since we started working together. My playing instruments and knowing what key I'm in and all that stuff has gotten better, and feeding off of each other and encouraging each other is huge, because there's no frustration there. I know that he's a better musician, and he knows that the comedy stuff is going to come to me faster because we've both been doing those respective things professionally for decades. So,
And it's great that you both have your own strengths and weaknesses, and you balance so well. Have you ever had any conflicts creatively as far as what you're bringing to the table, or has it just been hunky dory?
No, I'd say maybe in the beginning we didn't, when we were first trying to figure it out, we didn't know how far, you don't know where the boundaries are, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
And now, because we've been doing this for, a couple of years now, we both know that the final outcome is what's best for this sketch or for this song. So we can disagree. We don't get into any, are you sure, whatever. But we don't. Now it's kind of trial and error. Some things just don't work. Some things do.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's you start to appreciate the other person's opinion and thoughts and feelings towards something, where you're like, all right, this is the 3rd time I've pitched this song or this thing. And it's like, you haven't laughed any time. And I don't know if that's just because you don't get it. And it's like, well, it's not funny and the song doesn't work at all. And I've also played songs in front of people and they didn't respond. I'm like, it's just a weird audience. I'm like, or wait for it.
Yeah.
What if this just doesn't work? Yeah, exactly. So again, yes, it's very much, that is the world of music and comedy, is that you create stuff that's funny to you. And that's we reference Rick Rubin all the time. And Joe, you and I have talked about that recently. We both have read his new book that came out. And it's very much that idea that just like when you have your antennae up to creativity, you get these inspirations, and they're only going to land in people that are going to put that stuff out there. And we've gotten better about getting that inspiration, getting that creativity, and putting it out there instead of just sitting on it. And that was a big thing for us to like, art is like the time that you put into it if it's someone's going to see it. And so that's our whole thing, is that the reason we released the album in the first place was we had recorded this in 2019 and kind of just sat on it. And everything went down, as everybody knows. And then we just got to the point where we were like, this stuff is funny to us. Why don't we just let other people enjoy it? Let's put it out there. And then that really lit the spark again to keep going with it. And we've been loving it ever since.
So many creative endeavors are all about stepping up to the plate and taking a big swing. But I feel like comedy especially, you really don't know how other people are going to react to it until you're up on stage and you're performing it. So I want to talk a little bit about taking risks with comedy. Have you ever written a joke, performed a joke that you were hesitant to perform because of how it would be received?
Oh, yes.
Very, very much so. And very quickly, to even preface that, when I first started doing comedy stuff, which was probably around like 2010, it was much easier to do comedy. The world has changed dramatically in the past 13 years in terms of characters that you can play on stage that at one point you were like, oh, this is just like a funny like accent. And you're like, oh, got it. Can't do that at all. That's super, super offensive. Sorry about that. And then you look back and go, oh my gosh, how many people were so accepting of this over the past however many years? So some of the stuff that we used to be able to say, you certainly can't say anymore, and a lot of it for good reason. But that has translated now into we're a little more thoughtful and a little more careful when we're sitting there with the nitty gritty with lyrics and jokes and stuff, for sure.
Yeah, you have to be, which is a little bit unfortunate, because it's a modern development that, especially with comedy, you need to put this much forethought into what you're putting out into the world. You go back and look at George Carlin performing in the 70s and the 80s and say, if he did that stuff today, he probably wouldn't last that long, because somebody would take that down.
Sure. Oh, the cancel culture back in the day would have just feasted on some of these comedians.
If him or Bill Hicks was around right now, forget it. It would be over.
Tons and tons of that.
So let's talk a little bit about Volume 1. I want to talk about the process, what went into this, what went into the recording of Volume 1.
Oh, man. Well, we started playing shows around LA. One of our first shows is in the back of a trailer, literal truck trailer.
In North Hollywood, there's a little place called the Fourth Wall, and it's a tiny little like open mic spot where there's like 20 folding chairs, a tiny little stage, and a microphone. If you don't get on the list for the tiny little hole in the wall, there is a box truck next to the building with 8 folding chairs and a microphone and like a creepy light hanging in the corner. And our very first performance.
I hope there's pictures.
Oh, there is.
Yeah, there's pictures.
And the very first performance was of the song, which is number 4 on our album, and it's called Dutch Oven. And that was the first time we ever played. And people laughed at it. And like in that moment, we were like, we got something. I don't know what it is, but these random weirdos in the box truck with us are laughing. So maybe this will work in a stage in front of millions.
And what year was this?
2018?
2018?
Yeah.
2018.
Okay.
But yeah, that's where it started. You know, we only had a couple of songs at that point, and then kind of we started getting on stage, and a couple other ones were finished. God, I don't even remember. The first few were like Dutch Oven and that other song that we didn't record. Stinky Pinky, it was called. That was like one of the
yeah.
wrote.
We spent way too much time on that song and really felt like it was strong.
Yeah, and then we listen to it now, it's like,
I looked at the lyrics and was like, oh my God, we have grown in the past few years. No, yeah. And even just the origins of all of it was, again, like pitching that music. I remember coming to Dave and saying, I want to try these in different styles. So like it's all going to be basically acoustic guitar because that's the easiest thing to do on stage. But I want to play, like, we have a song that's like a gospel song. We have this country song. We have this like 80s rock ballad, all of which you can do. And so that's when we started, we had played a little bit of the music, and then we started incorporating the costume changes. So so as long as we could do like 2 songs, you would get a chance to see one genre of music in a costume, and then a quick like shirt comes on or off, and then a new genre of music with a hat or whatever. Like the simple thing would be to kind of make you fall into that new style of music. So I think the first time we did back-to-back songs was at Flappers. Was it Flappers?
Oh, might have been Flappers, actually.
And we were on their the Yoo-Hoo room or something like that at Flappers and Burbank. Yeah, I think that's it. And so we got a chance to play a couple of songs. We had one called like Melancholy Supper and then Glory, Glory, and a couple of, they're all on our album. And it was really just workshopping the music, kind of seeing where like the funny beats would be, and most of them worked as is. And so after we had kind of fleshed out a few more songs just in the style that we talked about earlier, shout out to Clay Schmidt, our music producer.
Yeah, Clay Schmidt.
He and I went to high school together. He moved out and was a sound mixer in LA for a long time, and then we kind of reconnected. I pitched him the idea that we wanted to record this album, and he had a studio at his house, and for a very reasonable price helped us record 7 songs in the summer of 2019, and he mastered all of them. And that was our finished product, and then the world more or less fell apart, and we took a little hiatus trying to figure out our own personal stuff and our own, like, what's happening with the world. We both moved, and then May 3rd of this year, we released Ben and Dave's Mixtape Volume 1. 7 songs, 21 minutes, one great time.
And we'll plug it now. We'll for sure get it in the end and in the show notes, but where can people check out Ben and Dave's Mixtape Volume 1?
The good thing about Ben and Dave's Mixtape is that everything is under Ben and Dave's Mixtape. So if you want to listen to music on Apple, Spotify, Pandora, Tidal, all of those, everything's under Ben and Dave's Mixtape, and it's our only album, so it's the one you can find. And then all the social media stuff is also Ben and Dave's Mixtape.
And what is the process like for getting your music on these platforms? It seems daunting. It seems really intimidating. And you're shaking your head.
For our audience,
the listener.
Ben's shaking his head.
It just has a 1,000-mile stare right now.
To where he almost is breaking his neck.
So tell us about that process.
One thing I could say is this: we weren't prepared for the fact that we are comedy music, that was going to be some sort of almost blockage for us to put stuff up. We had to jump through so many hoops because of that, because of the things that we were talking about. Things are changing with society, and companies have different ways they want to do things. At first, when we started to try to get it put out, they told us basically no, that a lot of the platforms don't want spoken word. You're like, what? It was crazy to get everything up. We finally got everything up. We figured everything out. But yeah, it was a bit daunting, because nowadays most indie artists or any kind of artist can just go and put their music up, and it goes right up through the platform, whatever they're using, the DistroKid or TuneCore, wherever they are. But this was definitely different. We were not that we weren't prepared, but we were kind of like, what?
Well, and we had an outline for, like, I want to say February 1st. We kind of said we're releasing this album in 3 months. We're giving ourselves 90 days. We'd watched a bunch of like YouTube videos and talked to some people. They said, there's a thing where you can release an album in 21 days and all this different kind of stuff. And like, this is the stuff you do every day, and batch your content, and make sure this stuff is uploaded, and you have your bios and all this different stuff on Spotify and a million different streaming platforms. As it gets closer and closer, you're doing all of these things. We feel great about it. And you want to get put on Spotify's new artist playlist. That has to be submitted a certain number of days early. If you're releasing an album, you can only get one of your songs in there. You can't give them the whole album, and all these little like fine print things that you don't really know about. And just to double up on the spoken word thing, we are set May 1st, album's coming out, super excited. People are ready to buy it and listen to it. Midnight, it comes up and nothing's on Spotify. And we're like, maybe it's midnight West Coast, so it'll be 3 a.m. here. So I wake up the next morning, not on Spotify, and we're like panic mode. Day goes by, not on Spotify. 2 days goes by, not on Spotify. We're freaking out, have no idea what's happening. And the idea is that if you click comedy as your genre, that's considered spoken word comedy, even though we're comedy music. And that is banned in the United States of America on the streaming platforms.
Yep.
There's a lot of interesting political stuff that goes behind that we didn't have any idea about. So we basically had to petition to them and reach out to someone whose supervisor said, we're going to push this through for you because we've listened to it. There is no spoken word at all. It's all music. And we finally were able to get up. But because of that, all of our like new artist playlist stuff, didn't come up the right day. So we missed out on all of that, on all of the stuff. So with that, like, that really hurt our like opening week stuff. And we were really hoping to kind of make a little bit of a splash in the comedy music community, you know, that underground scene. So next time, it's definitely very much a trial by fire. You learn as you go along. And boy, we felt like we did a lot of right things and we could not have made more mistakes. So we were like, well, learn from those. And the next time we come out, we'll kill it. But boy, it's a learning curve. So if anyone's releasing music or releasing comedy, read the fine print, take your time, talk to people who have done it, because there's a lot of shortcuts and there's a lot of long cuts, and we took some long cuts for sure.
Yeah, I feel like a massive warning message bubble should have popped up and said, by the way,
right?
This is banned in your number one market.
Yeah.
So what genre do you fall under?
We
now?
did have, I think, one stream in Ukraine. For the first 2 days that our music was up, we were on the top of the charts there.
It is fun with the podcast. You can also see where they're streamed. So it's usually Atlanta, Los Angeles, our hometowns, and then there's like South Africa. I had 2.
Yeah.
So like it wasn't a mistake. Who do we know in South Africa?
We were legit. I'm not kidding. Like, it was Ukraine and 2 other like Eastern European countries, and then there was a couple in South America that popped up, and we're like, we're just killing it there. No idea. We'll have to tour there next.
So what genre do you fall under if it's not comedy anymore?
That was the headache and still is.
So you're still listed as comedy?
So we had to remove the comedy heading, but we put in as, I think, rock and then singer-songwriter. Which would fall under like Jewel and like John Mayer kind of a
Bob
setup.
Dylan and you.
Yeah.
Literally.
and there's a lot of people that are considered singer-songwriter, but we, again, I almost take that as a badge of honor that we don't have, you can't put a label on us, dude. You can't put us in a category, all right? That's how punk rock we are, but we're not just punk rock.
Let's talk a little bit about self-promotion, because you guys have to be putting yourself out there. You got to have a TikTok. You got to have an Instagram. You got to have a Facebook. What has that process been like for you?
A lot of it has. Ben is real diligent about that stuff. We talk about what we're going to do planning wise, and then he kind of has been implementing it. It can be daunting, but it's really cool. Like this, it's so strange. Everything's so strange, and Ben will tell you with the algorithms and stuff, because there'll be days where we'll put something out, we'll say on like the YouTubes or whatever, and there'll be like 300 views, but then he'll put it up on like Facebook or TikTok, and there's 2,000 views. It's like, what? So that's the thing, is kind of, how does all that work, and why does it work this way and not that way? And
Oh yeah. And
I'd say Ben is kind of the point guy on that. He puts a lot of time in on the social media stuff.
And that was another huge learning curve. And again, I'm a full-time actor as well, and Dave's a full-time musician, and so this is kind of our little baby that we do together, and it's not even necessarily our full thing. So this helped me so much just learn about, again, self-promotion is just the name of the game as an actor. I mean, Torrin, you know that, and Joe, for goodness sakes, you are so good with the photography stuff. I mean, your social media is on fleek. Is that still? That's not a thing.
That's what they say.
That can't be it.
That's a thing.
Bet.
Slapped.
It was a huge learning curve. In the same way that like putting an album out, I've had social media for years and years, and I just posted stuff because there was a funny picture, like, or whatever it was. I'm on a trip, and this is the drink at the beach. understanding how to do all of the things and how to manipulate the algorithm, which is such a fruitless endeavor because you're never going to, is a full-time job. I understand why companies have social media and marketing people who they hire to do this all the time, because it's exhausting, and it really is the most frustrating when you're like, oh, this clip is going to kill. And then it gets like 4 views, and it's devastating because you've spent time on that. Rarely do you just take a thing, put it up there, and you're done. You're looking at hashtags, and you're looking at captions, and you're looking at the picture, and you're looking at, for us, we have lyrics underneath all of our videos that we put up. So you have to get the captions app and do all that stuff. But because there's music playing on top of the singing, we have to manually caption it, which defeats the purpose of the AI. So eat it, robots. Huge learning curve. But just like anything else, the more you do it, the faster it gets, and the payoff becomes a little bit easier. You also care a little bit less because you know there's going to be 100 other posts. But I've always tried to like play the humble card of like, I'm not going to promote myself as an actor unless I have like something to promote. But with the music stuff and the comedy stuff, you're always promoting. And so you have to kind of get over that hump and just say, this is necessary for what we do, because no one's going to hear the music if you don't put the music in front of people. So that's been a huge thing for us. And it can be fun sometimes, and you have good interactions with fans and people that enjoy it. And you take little tips like, Joe, I ask you weekly, like, hey, what are you doing for this next thing? Da, da, da. You're like, I'm doing this video about this, and I put this captions here, and you should watch this video. Like, the more study and research that you do, it does become easier, but it's very daunting at first. And again, just like releasing an album, do your homework, watch some videos, just keep putting stuff up, and it'll get better.
It's a continual exercise in patience. It's what I find, because I haven't found something like social media where you have to be simultaneously 100% in, but also completely unaffected by the results. You cannot be swayed by, I spent 30 hours doing this video and 5 people watch it. It's almost better to not try to not look at how many views or clicks you're getting. And it's also very... It's tricky. It's defeating, because this happened the other week with you and I, Ben, where we met up, and I said, well, now we have to be on Threads.
Right.
And you're like, what is
Threads?
Threads? I'm like, well, it's essentially Twitter, but it's a whole separate platform that we now also have to be a part of. And with all of these social media platforms, you have to jump in while it's hot. You have to get in at the very beginning, because it will peter off and engagement will die. Mm-hmm. So you have to get in at the very, very beginning. How is your Threads going?
Ooh, I had already forgotten what it was again until you just brought it up.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I was on the Threads. But that's where I think some of the daunt comes in, is that you realize if you really want to make a splash, you got to have a good TikTok channel, and then you have to have a good Instagram page, and then Facebook is still a thing, which so many people have forgotten about it. But it's still like, when we started posting our reels on Facebook, we were getting thousands and thousands of views on every video, and we were in there at that first beginning thing, and it's definitely like petered off, putting a bunch of stuff up, and now it's like 300 or 400. So understanding how to get the content and put it on all of the things, again, it can be very time consuming. Like batching that stuff and doing little bits that's the trick, I think, for sure.
And watching all of your clips on social media, I've noticed that your audiences love you guys. They get really involved with your songs. It's almost audience participation. Talk a little bit about the energy of performing live.
Oh man, there's nothing like it. I've had that need since I was little to perform. I think Ben feels the same way, but
Sure.
there's something about when the two of us are on stage and we're doing those costume changes and really committing to the characters. People like a story, and when they see it in front of them and they see the costumes, most people, for some reason, they put their guard down. Me and Ben were talking this morning about how every time we play Glory, Glory, people lose it and they start clapping. I mean, we're like, oh, this is awesome. Like, it's, we try to make it happen, but it's really almost like a drug, performing And the two of us, because we've both performed in different things, we can play off each other and the characters. That I think that's why the audiences really kind of gravitate towards us, because it is something different in terms of comedy, and we're performing. We're right in front of you performing these songs, so they get lost in it, which is awesome.
Yeah, the comedy music thing is so unique in and of itself, to the point that I've been to a million stand-up shows. And when you see that rhythm, they always used to talk about, like, in auditioning, when you see people walking in the room, you go in there and there for 5 minutes, they walk out. They go in for 5 minutes, they walk out. And I had an acting teacher that always says, like, break up the rhythm. Like, go in there and stay longer, talk to them, do whatever it is, so that everyone in the waiting room is now thinking, like, oh my God, that guy definitely booked it. He's been in there for 7 minutes. And everyone was in there and whatever the whole thing is. When you see stand-up and it's 5 minutes light, new comic, 5 minutes light, new comic, 5 minutes, oh, he has a guitar. Oh, this is interesting. It's just different. And so we were like, well, how can we be different but still enjoy what we're doing? And so by having those comics go up, and some of them are great, some of them are trying out new stuff, and then we get up and we like to think that we're pretty polished with a lot of the things that we put up, and it turns into a show. It's not just kind of like an open mic. And so we lean into that commitment hard. And that, again, that was something that Dave had just brought up, and I think we just talked about that this morning. People reward the commitment. So if you're a stand-up and you're doing a bit, commit to the bit. If you don't get a laugh, don't blame it on the audience. Write a better joke. When we do well, we look at each other and we just laugh and hug and have a drink afterwards and whatever. And when we bomb, we just laugh and hug and have a drink with each other. We win together and we lose together. But that's the fun thing about performing with someone right next to you. If I forget the lyrics, Dave's just sitting next to me, committed to the bit, playing the guitar. If he screws up a chord, I'm just singing my heart out, and we just rock right on through it. And I think that was like, the sooner we realized, if you go all in, they're on your team. They're on board. There's people clapping who you're like, you've never listened to a country song in your life, and you are loving this country song because we're wearing cowboy hats and we're yee-hawing up there.
Yeah. People in the audience are like, wait, are they real cowboys? They are committing.
Oh, we talked about bringing real horses on stages, right? When we do. It's in the works. We have a massive plan for this huge, like, stadium tour that is going to be amazing. I've been manifesting it hard, and stuff has been coming true lately. So I just want to say, get ready for some more.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
How do when so much of your live performance is based on the visuals and props and costume changes, how well do those songs translate to Spotify when the audience can't see you anymore?
That's a great question. I think we just tried to make those recordings at the time, as good as we could possibly make them and get across the feeling for each song. But I think we're made for live. We're made for live performance. You have to come see us live. That's the main thing. The music is there and recorded, and it sounds great, but it's different when you come see us play.
The original thought, going back to 2018, or I guess probably 2015, 16, when I started writing stuff, was that I always enjoyed comedy music that the song itself holds up, but also the lyrics are funny. So it's not like, this is a fart song, fart, fart, fart. Then you're like, okay, that's funny, and that works on stage for a couple of seconds. I would never listen to that on Spotify or put that on an album. But if you have
and now it's on our podcast.
Exactly. Oh man, copyright Ben & Dave's Mixtape 2023. All rights reserved. But my whole thing was, I don't want this to be like a goofy song about goofy stuff. This is a serious song to these guys. It just has weird content or funny content or off-color content. These guys are singing a song about a Dutch oven, which people know what a Dutch oven is, so shout out to people who are still doing Dutch ovens. But they're singing this like it is the ballad in the middle of their stadium tour after they've just been rocking out and there's flames going, and now they're taking it down to Ballad Town. So everyone just slow down and take out your lighters. And the idea is that their commitment to this bit, these characters who are us, the song should hold up. That was always my dream, is that when we write a song and record a song, it holds up in that genre. That if you're listening to Kenny Chesney and Garth Brooks and Luke Bryan and Ben and Dave's Mixtape comes on, it's just another country song. And then you're like, what are they singing about? Wait a minute, what? That was the dream always. Yeah. So when we released the album, I felt like our punk rock song, if you threw that on a mix with Blink-182 and Sum 41 and Bowling for Soup or whoever, it would fit in that mix in the top 5 of the songs that you're listening to, because it's so genre specific. Back to your question, Joe, the thing that's interesting is that almost from top to bottom, the songs that work best on stage are not the strongest ones on streaming, but the ones that stream best aren't the strongest ones on stage. It could be costume related, it could be performance related. For whatever reason, we found that when there's audience participation in the songs, whether it's clapping or snapping, people have a tendency to love those songs even more. And I think it just comes to, if you like that genre of music, then you're going to like that song on Spotify. If you're watching it live, you'll like the song if we're committed to it. Yeah, I think that's kind of like the secret sauce.
And the goal is always to reach as many people as possible. So with those songs that perform and kill amazingly well live, but not so much on Spotify, do you have plans to turn those into music videos?
Yep, it's all been talked about. We're discussing it with a filmmaker that I'm friends with, that we're both friends with, and that's with the other songs that we've already written almost the whole second album. So we're looking ahead at that, definitely doing some videos and stuff, even for this as well.
And that kind of goes back to some of the stuff you talked about, how like if we lived down the street from each other, so many of these things would be easier. And so I think us working through not being in the same state or being in the same, I was going to say time zone, but I suppose we're both on the East Coast now. So cut that. Not being right next to each other makes some of those things a little more difficult. There's a little more planning that goes into it, but the payoff is always just like great. Like when we do get to see each other, we're so productive. And one of the things we talked about going way back is that I'm very visual when it comes to this stuff. And when I write some of the lyrics to these songs, I can like see the music video playing out. And the idea that's fun is that the music videos are, of course, genre specific. So you have a country song, it's going to look like a country music video. You have a punk rock song, looks like a punk rock music video. So, which is another fun thing to play into, because you get to be that rock star in a different world every time you're doing it. So yeah, there should be some fun digital stuff coming along. I just need like a director and an editor.
Yeah. If I find anyone, I'll let you know.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Where are you in the writing development process of Volume 2?
We have some real good ones, some solid ones, some stuff that we worked on, like one or two that we had been working on. It's exciting because, there's some songs that come to you that they just come to you. They come out. They're written, you write them really quick and they're down. You're like, wow, how did that happen? And some of those are going to be on the new album. Some of them I can't wait to record. Like some of them are really funny to me and to Ben. So that's going to be exciting to record them. We probably have about, 5 or 6 ideas, maybe 7 ideas, but there's a good 4 or 5 that are, I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, there's some that are fleshed out. Like we're good to go musically, we're good to go lyrically. Getting them up on their feet and playing them a little bit. The first time we went through, we were like, we have 7 completed songs. Let's record these 7 completed songs and let's play these 7 completed songs. Now that we have an ability to go out and play some of these at some open mics and play some shows and kind of like workshop some of them to kind of see, because I think that we've had 4 years between, I guess, the original album and then this one. There's been a lot of stuff that's been written. So now it's really trying to hone, like, we don't necessarily want to have a country song on the second album because we have one on the first one. We don't necessarily want to have this and that. We have a couple parodies that we've worked on that we don't want to lean too heavy on. But again, Weird Al was such a big influence on both of us that it's super fun to get up there and hear someone start to play the chords of a song, and you're like, oh, I know that. And you're like, oh, that is not the version I know. So we're working towards that. We definitely want to get up and be playing some live shows as soon as possible. And then the album, when the time is right and we feel ready to get in there and just like hammer it out. There's no reason by the end of the year that we can't have another one in the books.
And what genres do we have to look forward to? Are there any that you've kept in your back pocket? You're always like, I'm heavily influenced by surf rock. Is there anything that we can look forward to in Volume 2?
We do have a reggae style song that we want to lean into. We have a doo-wop song that kind of leans into Dave's strength of the barbershop quartet, which that was actually an idea that we had a long time ago. He was like, there was a lot of stuff where I was contributing lots of lyrics and Dave was contributing music. He's like, I want to contribute lyrics. And he goes, what do we do a barbershop quartet? And it was just, I think it was just about boobs.
Yeah, it's just, I'll have to rework that one.
Which, it might still, that's one of the ones that we look back and we're like, it was like that first song we wrote and we're like, okay, maybe we could workshop that. So yes, we have barbershop quartet. We have a reggae song. Oh, we have a boy.
Oh,
band.
we have a metal song. We have a boy band
a metal
song
and a boy band song.
That I can't wait. The boy band song. I tell them all the time. I cannot wait. It's so funny.
Just picture white overalls and white fedoras.
White bandana.
And if I can throw out a suggestion,
Please.
What I would really like to see and hear is rap, but specifically Fresh Prince and Jazzy Jeff style.
Ooh. That's actually
90s hip hop. I mean, yes.
Yeah.
That's my wheelhouse right there.
Keep my DJ's name out your mouth.
You got to it first.
Never gets old.
Yeah.
And at the end of the song, one of you would have to be thrown out by Uncle Phil onto the front lawn.
That's true.
Naturally. I love it.
Can I do the Carlton in the background of your music video?
Please.
You can do it in the foreground.
Yay!
The whole time. This guy's exhausted. You're end of a 3-minute video, you're just sweating and just like passed out.
Because it would be in a sweater. Yeah. I don't
That's true.
Like a long sleeve polo or something like that. Yeah. Oof.
So are the live performances while you're working on number 2 really important to workshopping these and developing these? How much do the songs change once you start performing them in front of a live audience?
They definitely change for sure. It's just, evolving. And the good thing is that we're able to do that and get up and try them. Ben tried something on Friday where he was at, and he got a good response. And sometimes you don't, but they do change a little bit. They evolve. So we already said the next few shows you want to throw in 1 or 2 of these newer songs, and throw it up against the wall, see what happens.
And there's so much that goes into putting a new song in the mix because there's a full costume change that goes with it. And again, like it can be as simple as the first song comes on, we play that song, and then we take off a shirt and we have another one underneath. If there's a more of an intensive costume change, that we have to either start with that or end with that or whatever it is. So there's a little more planning that goes into it. It's interesting, back to your question, Joe. The thing with some of the music too is that if it just doesn't work a couple of times, I kind of just scrap it to like the back of the book and go, the lyrics are there, the thoughts there, maybe this will work, or maybe we can incorporate this. But for whatever reason, this thing isn't working. And then I'm like, I don't know if it's worth my time to like hack this up and move stuff around or add, because it feels like the concept isn't working. So I'm just going to scrap the concept for now and then come back to it. And like David said, the stuff that comes super quick, you get up on stage and play it and it gets a laugh right away. And you're just like, how? I worked on this song for a month and it's just flat. And then I did it again and it's flat. And I wrote this song in 15 minutes. I played it and just brought down the house. Yeah. There's absolutely no rhyme or reason. That's very much back to the Rick Rubin thing, where you get inspiration, and if you're going to put it out there, it's going to work. And the only way you know is by putting it out there. And so that's why we're excited to get up on stage and try some new stuff out. And like Dave said, I played a song on Friday night that I felt good about, and it killed. And I was like, yes, this is going to be so much fun for us to play. Yeah. And then I had another one that I was like, oh yeah, crickets. And I was like, well, maybe we'll try this one more time in front of a different audience and see if it works. If not, back of the line. So. And
it sounds like you you almost need to be workshopping and performing these across the country, because comedy translates differently depending on regionally where you are, and so does music.
100%.
Definitely.
That's very true.
Yeah, and that's really what we want to do, really just to kind of like perfect the set and kind of get to the point that it's like when Netflix is like, hey, we're ready for you to do a special. We're like, perfect. We've already done this 700 times. Like we're ready to go, because we're not like the joke doctors like Jerry Seinfeld that goes out and he writes a bit, and if he takes a 2-second hesitation, that changes the joke. And he's such a perfectionist in that way.
Oh yeah.
a lot of the stuff that we adjust with songs that already work are just kind of like the intros and outros when we're talking to the crowd, or like different things that we're doing during the songs and stuff. We're like, oh, you got a good reaction. Let's try that next time. Oh, that got a good reaction again.
Yeah.
That stays. Plant a flag in that response and then see if that works. And then that really starts to like fill out and build the show and build the characters to the point that every time a song is played, we're like, dude, they're just laughing for the whole time. So it's like really finding the stuff that works and then working that in. Because right now, I think the longest we've played is maybe like 4 to 5 songs in a row. We did the Comedy Central stage in Los Angeles right before everything went down with the pandemic. And we had like an hour show with 2 stand-ups in between. So we did like a 25-minute set, 5-minute stand-up, 5-minute stand-up, 25-minute set. So we want to get to the point that we can just play a full hour, bring down the house.
It has to be hard to be sandwiched in between 2 stand-up comics because what you do is so different to that. It's music comedy. And I liked what you were talking about the other day, Ben, when I talked to you and you said, maybe I should start, instead of performing at open mics for comedies, I should start performing in places that are music halls.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we learned kind of the idea behind that too is like if you go to a comedy open mic, you got like 3 to 5 minutes max. So unless you have 2 quick songs, you're really only getting 1 song in. Again, the idea of our act is that even if you didn't like the first song, you're probably going to like the second song because it's going to be a totally different genre, a totally different topic, whatever the whole thing is. When you go to a music open mic, as Dave kind of introduced to me, they let you play 3 or 4 songs. So you're up there for 15 minutes and you get a chance to really try that out. And we've played some of those before and they've gone great. And it gives us a chance to basically do a dress rehearsal, a literal dress rehearsal for the costume changes and the thing that goes along with the transition. That's what we got to perfect, is the transition. As little dead air as possible.
Yep.
I want to keep that in. As little dead air as possible.
And then
just all 4 of us.
Perfect.
That's staying in. So at the end of each episode, guys, we always like to ask our guests if you could go back in time and see little boy Ben, little boy David, and give them a piece of advice. If you could impart some wisdom to them from your knowledge now, what would it be?
For me, it would be kind to yourself. Believe in yourself, because I think just being a creative in my whole life, I struggled with that a lot of times. That's what I would have said to myself. Just believe in yourself. Just do what you do and believe in it. And don't worry about what people say or what's going on. That's what I would say to myself for sure.
Love that.
Same.
All right.
Nope.
So thank you both.
No, that was very well put. The first thing that came to mind was get up and do it. Just go do it, which is different than Nike. There's so many times that I've doubted either my ability to do something or my judgment to do something, that when I finally did it, the payoff was instantaneous. And then I would beat myself up for not doing it sooner.
Yeah.
And the answer that I just always knew was like, just go do that thing. If you're scared for a reason. That means you have to go do it. So go do it. And so that's the reason that I wrote that song and forced myself to play guitar on stage for the first time in 2014 at the Second City. And now I do it on stage every week. And Dave and I are going to be hopefully on tour soon doing the same thing. I just was so scared to do it, which is exactly why you have to do it. So that's the number one thing, is that if you write a screenplay, send it out to people and let them read it. If you sing a song, let people hear the song. If you all of those things, you write a poem, go read the poem for someone. Let that stuff breathe and live in the world. That's the one thing that I ad nauseum tell Dave, and it goes back to Rick Rubin for the 3rd time. All he talks about is to have the antennae up and put that stuff out there. And you're never going to know unless you just put it out there. The reason art is created is to be shared. Share it. And I was always so scared and so precious about so many things. And sometimes you realize just how silly or dumb the stuff is, or how important it is to put it out there. So just do it now.
That's 2 very beautiful pieces of wisdom. And what's nice about your relationship is that I get the sense that you can both provide that feedback to each other as you're working. It's easy to sit here and talk about being kind to yourself and just putting it out there. but times get tough. We get down. Creatively, we get into a bit of a rut. So it's always nice to have somebody to bounce these off of.
Completely agree. Thanks for saying that. And just to kind of say, both of those things also go the other way. Like, Dave has been so kind to me during times that I really needed kindness because I wasn't being kind to myself or because things were just hard. And I like to think it's the same.
Absolutely. It is the same.
And he's encouraged me like crazy just to go do it. Just get up and go play. Just, you're good enough. You have a good voice. Go sing. You can play guitar. Go. I'm like, Dave, go play. Go play for 4 hours. Go make some money and play some covers and get the calluses back on your fingers. Go do it. You're good enough. You're enough. Go. He and I are endlessly kind to each other and endlessly encouraging of each other. And I think that in a partnership or a friendship, I'm the same way with both of you guys. You guys have encouraged me to do tons of stuff and held me accountable to do things. Those are the people that you need to surround yourself with.
Absolutely.
That's the other thing to tell the younger person. There's people who are just not going to be in that same orbit as you. It's okay to let them go. Spend time around the people that are encouraging you and are kind to you.
Wow. Beautiful message to end the show on. Well, thank you so much for both being here today to talk with us about your work. So Ben and Dave's Mixtape Volume 2 currently in the works. Where else can we find you? Plug your socials. Plug whatever you got.
Heck yeah. Ben and Dave's Mixtape is the handle on everything. We're pretty active on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Really trying to push a lot of the YouTube stuff just because it's a fun, easy outlet, and it's going to be there forever and ever. And yeah, hopefully we're going to be playing a lot of shows. We're both on the East Coast. So we play in Atlanta. Usually at this point, it's about once a month, and in New York once a month. We're trying to do a little bit more, maybe get a booking agent. So the show dates and everything that we'll have coming up will be posted on all that stuff. So Ben and Dave's Mixtape through and through. And thank you guys for having us. We've been
thanks for having us.
We're listeners, and we're stoked to get on here and chat with you.
Yeah, this is wonderful. We'll put all of this information down in the show notes. So everybody, please go down there, click on it, give them subscribes, give them follows, ring the bells, thumbs up, all of the things to support these two and the amazing art that they create.
Very smooth four-way today.
Oh, well, thank you so much for both being here today, and we can't wait for Volume 2.
Heck yeah. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.